All right, so it's only 20 days until Election Day. We are really into crunch time. We're coming into that home stretch. Even though if you've worked in politics, 20 days is an eternity. A lot can happen. But I figured with early votes coming in-person early votes coming in, voter turnout rates going up in some states and being a little bit significant, let's go ahead and start looking at the map and seeing where things might lie right now on the Electoral College map. So we're going to take some polling data. We're relying less and less on it now, looking more at the early voting trends and where that might be going. And then also just kind of, as I've mentioned before, my experience of working in these states and kind of knowing the lay of the land of that. So let's go ahead and jump into the Electoral College map right now. All right, so let's go ahead and fill out the electoral map. And I'm going to mention right now what I mentioned in previous videos is that my colors are based on the likelihood of a candidate winning that state. So if you see a dark blue or a dark red, that means that even if the election results are maybe closer than we think, I truly don't believe that either one of the candidates can lose or win that state if you're the opposing candidate. So remember, these dark blue, dark reds are based on likelihood of winning, not percentage of the vote. So for example, if we want to go ahead and take the state of Minnesota, the vote might be a little bit closer than we think because it's Minnesota and Minnesota does that a lot, but I have it as dark blue because the Democrats are going to win. So let's go ahead, start from the West Coast, work our way east because there are more kind of toss-up states in the east. And let's start with that left coast. So Hawaii is definitely going to be Democratic as far as the coast. Washington, Oregon, and California also going to be very, very Democratic. So when it comes to Alaska, I still have it in this red because I don't think it'll be extremely close, but there's a possibility of it being able to turn, okay? Let's go ahead and look at Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Utah, all going to be safe Republican states. Utah, as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, I want to see if Democrats get over 40%. That's why I'm looking for in Utah. When we look at the strong Democratic states, Colorado and New Mexico, those are going to go Democratic. So right now, as far as Nevada and Arizona, I still have Nevada going slightly to the Democrats. I'm downgrading this a little bit just because of some of the early numbers that we're getting in. But even with that being the case, we haven't had a large amount of early numbers. Clark County is still a significantly lower percentage of the early vote than what we have. But with Nevada, we'll be able to know before Election Day because most of the vote is vote by mail. Well, it is a vote by mail state, so all of it is technically vote by mail. As of right now with Arizona, I'm still putting this in the very, very slightest of reds. I just haven't seen early vote data coming in, not looking great for Democrats. Some of the polls haven't looked great. I still don't see enough there to make it a Democratic state for, again, the presidential election. We're looking at the Electoral College. We're not talking about the Senate race. Ruben Gallegos should be able to win that. All right, so now let's go down the Midwest strip here. So we got North Dakota, South Dakota, and then we have Nebraska. And I think Nebraska looks good. And with the polls that we had coming out of the 2nd Congressional District, I'm going to not have that quite a lock yet, but really, really trending in that direction, that Nebraska 2nd Congressional District. Kansas and Oklahoma are definitely going to go Republican. And when it comes to Texas, I'm going to kind of put it in the category of Alaska. I think it will go Republican on the day of the election, but you never know if there's a surprise. It's not anything that could be really, really close. When we come to Louisiana and Arkansas and Missouri, these are all going to be locks for the Republicans. When it comes to Iowa, we're going to put it in that same category as Alaska and Texas because I want to wait for the Seltzer poll to come out. There is some early voting data that looks good for the Democrats, but again, we don't have that much, and I haven't really delved into that like I have other states, so we'll come to that early voting data in a few. Now let's go ahead and head south because we just have a few states that are locked: Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, and go up to Indiana. Now the rest of the states. Well, we have Illinois. That is definitely a lock for the Democrats. Now, let's look at Wisconsin. With each and every day, more and more votes I see, more and more models I see, I'm feeling way more confident that Wisconsin is going to go blue. I am not putting it in a lock category yet. I want to see some more data come out as far as in-person voting, because remember, there's going to be a large percentage of the population voting early in Wisconsin. So need to wait for that in-person voting to start happen. It might end up like getting much, much closer. But once that happens, if the Democrats look good in Wisconsin, I say that will be a lock eventually. I am going this route with Michigan as well. I feel much, much, much more confident where Michigan is right now. And I think that the Democrats are on the verge of maybe clinching the state with both of these. The early vote numbers look really good. Some of the polling looks really good. It looks pretty decent for the Democrats. Now, when it comes to Ohio, we're going to go ahead and put that in the same category as Texas, Alaska, and Iowa. Watch the early votes. The early votes right now have been trending Republican. And I do think that within a few days of having some early votes, looking at some trends, this can maybe be a lock for the Republicans, but I'm not ready to put it there yet. And of course, West Virginia is a lock for the Republicans as well as South Carolina is a lock. Now let's look at Florida. The numbers in Florida, I'm actually going to downgrade it to being a little bit closer. I want to see more numbers come out of Florida, but the Democrats are doing a little bit better than I thought. Now, the vote by mail totals are real low, and it's not until next Monday that we see in-person voting. Once we start seeing those numbers, then we can go ahead and figure out more what Florida is going to do. About 65% of the state of Florida is probably going to vote early, maybe even a little less. We'll see what happens on Election Day. But Florida seems to be getting a little bit more and more closer, so I'm putting that more in a category than even Texas. I didn't think I'd be doing that, but I am. Now, when it comes to Georgia, as I mentioned in my video earlier today, the early numbers weren't the greatest for the Democrats, but they weren't catastrophic. Okay, the polls out of Georgia haven't looked that great. I've been wondering about Georgia for a while, and right now I just think that the Democrats are battling a little bit uphill. They're going up a little bit uphill, and it can hurt them a little bit, but I'm not nearly safe enough to say this is Republican, but as of the data right now, it does seem like it's heading in the way of the Republicans. Now, again, watch my video about the early vote that came in yesterday, the record-breaking vote, how that actually helped Republicans instead of Democrats. That trend can change at the end of this video. We never know. North Carolina, let's go ahead and get some of the stronger areas. So District of Columbia, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. So it's Vermont. And I mentioned New Hampshire. New Hampshire is now a lock for the Democrats. Almost all the New England states. And then when it comes to the 1st congressional district in Maine, still don't know what's going to happen in the 2nd congressional district, but I am going to make this a little darker of a red because it does seem like the return ballots for the Republicans of the vote by mail ballots that have been returned, the percentage is higher amongst Republicans than it is amongst Democrats. So that is something we have to watch, and not just watch when it comes to the Electoral College, but also this congressional race as well. When we look at New York, that is definitely a lock for the Democrats. Now let's go ahead and look at 3 more states that people kind of see as, as possible battleground states or true battleground states. If you remember in my last video, I put in Virginia as a lock, and I instituted a rule that says if I lock in a state, I cannot remove it from a lock. Virginia right now, the numbers look good. This is a lock for Democrats, so we are keeping it there. Pennsylvania, the trends as far as early voting go are in line with the trends that we see both Biden, Fetterman, Shapiro, all of them having previously. So the Democrats are where they need to be right now to win the state of Pennsylvania. So to me, the numbers maybe don't look, they look about like what we're seeing in Michigan and in Wisconsin. Now remember, when it comes to Pennsylvania, they don't have the stand in line early vote like you have in some of these other states like we see in Georgia right now. So this is not something that we're going to expect. And then finally, North Carolina. North Carolina, as far as some of the polling and some of the early numbers when it comes to turnout, look Democratic, but I am putting this in the very, very slightest of blues right now. So as of right now, I need the ones that are in the very slightest colors such as North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, I want to see more data. I want to see more come in. Florida, I want to see how that shifts. Now, when it comes to Texas, I have it in a darker red, mostly, again, for the presidential race. I do believe that the Democrats are just not as close when it comes to the presidential race, but when it comes to the Senate race, we might be talking about a different story there. I went ahead and did a video about that with the Senate race. Go ahead and check that Senate race out and see how the polling might actually show that all red could get a lot of votes from people who just go in and vote for Trump and then walk out. And as far as Ohio, obviously on this, we're talking about the Electoral College. So Sherrod Brown is performing better than obviously Kamala Harris is in Ohio, but we are seeing the numbers kind of close in both of those races. So we'll keep an eye on Ohio, but the early vote numbers right now seem to show that the Republicans are doing quite well there. But again, even though we have these numbers, Sherrod Brown will be doing significantly better than Kamala Harris. So that's what we have for the Electoral College today. Just wanted to do a short video, talk about where the data is, what's happening, what it looks like for the Democrats, what it looks like for the Republicans, and how things are coming along. Because it does seem right now that we are at a point where we're starting to possibly put some locks on some states. We have to wait for certain voting methods to start, like real in-person voting. We have to wait for that in Wisconsin and Michigan. And if the trends don't change that much, then we almost can say that those are Democratic states. But even with me saying this, even with me showing this a little bit better than, and showing it more of a lock, vote. Make sure you go out and vote. People have been coming down below to vote. Make sure you vote. That's important. Register to vote. Well, might even be too late in your state to register for this election, but register so you can do other elections. Find out the laws on how to vote. Find out if you need an ID to vote on election day or in person. Find out the laws when it comes to voting by mail. Do you need signatures, witnesses, everything? Find out all those rules and make sure you vote. All right. Thank you all very much. I will see you in the next video. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.